Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English-language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode. Good morning, listeners. Good morning, Yusuf. Good morning, Nasser.
Good morning, men.
How
morning,
are we all
everyone.
Today? Now, Nasser, what have we got on today on this special show?
We are first coming down off the high of my birthday yesterday.
Which falls and International Women's Day. Perfect.
Yes, correct. For God so loved women that he gave them me for... Well, this is what I told my mother anyway.
But also it helps with our gender ratio.
So happy birthday on a serious note. Happy birthday for Wednesday, Nasser.
Friday. Yep.
Sorry, Friday. International Women's Day, I should know.
Before that, did you make a wish? As in like Palestinian wish?
The standard.
Applicable one.
The standard
one?
Palestinian wish, yeah.
Okay.
Which is?
Liberation?
Next year in Jerusalem.
Okay.
That's the way.
Nice.
But we're going to be joined a bit later on by Sara Saleh, a fantastic Palestinian woman. We'll introduce her a bit later on. But first, during the week, I attended the BDS Jewish Community Discussion, which was organised by the Australian Jewish Democratic Society.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But we will not forget the Palestinian victory in Jerusalem and the opening of Al-Rahma Gate, which has been closed or locked by Israel since 2003.
Yeah, 14, 15 years now. Also, we'll talk about Haneen Za'abi and her plans post the upcoming election. And we might just touch on, if we get enough time, just the IDF and their training programs they're doing now in sub-Saharan Africa.
Excellent. So the AJDS meeting...
So it was a fantastic event. I was fortunate enough that a meeting that I was involved in finished early, so I was able to get there. But Sivan Barak and the Australian Jewish Democratic Society, they hosted 4 fantastic panellists. Mah Sabawi, our wonderful Palestinian woman, Dr. Jordi Silverstein, Sahar Vardi, who is an Israeli Jewish activist from Jerusalem. She came in via Skype. And Alex Fine, who I'd never heard of or seen before, but another really impressive woman. The best thing about this event was that it was a discussion. It wasn't a debate, which was fantastic because it allowed for a conversation to organically develop. Sivan did a great job of moderating the event. And what it gave was an opportunity, and certainly there was quite a few Palestinians there. Overwhelmingly, the audience was Jewish. But there were quite a few Palestinians there. It was great for us to see, Jews that were very much post-Zionist. You know, they were Bundists. They were very open to the discussion and understanding that a clear differentiation, a delineation between Zionism and Judaism. Of particular note, and certainly one of the great takeaways for me was Jordi Silverstein talking about, studying one of her. She's an academic, a PhD student, teaches in Jewish culture and civilization, etc. And one of the questions was, well, how do you academic BDS, if you're can't work with Israeli institutions? He said, well, that's the problem. Israel's created this space where it says that Israel is Jewish. There's a lot of Jewish history, a lot of Jewish culture that is not Israel. Israel's 70 years. There's the wonderful Melbourne Jewish community. There's, the Sephardic communities. There's lots of research can be done on Jews that has got nothing to do with Israel.
Even including voices who are Israeli, like the Israeli professor in Hebrew University, Ofer Kasif, who said that today's Israel is similar to Nazi Germany, just recently.
So that was great. Sahar Vardi from Jerusalem, she was very strong on using her white privilege to further, and A, that it's not her position to tell the Palestinians what they can and can't do, but B, it's her responsibility as a human, as an activist, to be led by Palestinians, and to use that privilege to her advantage. If she's at a checkpoint and a Palestinian's about to get arrested, and we know what that could mean for that Palestinian, she'll jump in and get arrested in his place.
There's a famous picture of Sahar Vari, I think 8 years ago, of her rescuing a Palestinian boy from being brutally bashed by an Israeli officer in Jerusalem. And we had the pleasure to interview her in 2011.
Yep. So she spoke about, putting herself in the front line, understanding that, the worst thing that's going to happen to her is in about 2 or 3 hours of detention, she's going to get to sit in front of a civil court, as opposed to what might happen to a Palestinian. And then Alex Fine, who spoke about her journey, as an ardent Zionist, an Israel firster, if you will, to where she is today, understanding that, expressing her Zionism as a Jewish attachment to a holy land, but accepting that Zionism as a settler colonialist enterprise is a failure, that Israel doesn't represent Judaism, that she accepts that she has no more right, and in fact, I would think she even said that she's got no right to land there, and particularly while 6 million Palestinians languish in refugee camps, on top of the 6+ million Palestinians that live in different stages of depravity within all the lands that Israel controls. So over and all, a really fantastic evening. Big kudos and congratulations to the AJDES, to Sivan and Yale, and all the other organisers. They did a fabulous job. Well, and we should mention, of course, Sabah Sabawi was just brilliant, as usual, as we always expect. She hit the ball out of the park. So
that's excellent. Very good summary of the event, and we'll forgive you for not recording because I didn't. Shall we mention that we expected Nasser to do some recording?
Well, fantastic to hear. We hear all these good things about it.
Whatever you do, don't mention it because we wouldn't want our listeners to know that I let them down.
No, it's okay. Next time,
just because it's your birthday, we won't actually tell them.
Yeah,
we'll leave it on the quiet now.
Yeah,
lay down.
Yeah. So from Jerusalem, we saw the opening of a gate which has been closed since 2003 during the horrendous Ariel Sharon era, where he used the circumstances to basically grab more land and to Jewdize more territories, especially in Jerusalem, by locking one of the holy gates of Al-Aqsa complex. The name of the gate is Rahma, which means mercy.
And when was this? So it was closed down?
Closed down since 2003.
2003 until today?
Yeah, Palestinian worshippers, Muslim worshippers were prevented from entering from this gate since 2003. And they even wanted more by allowing settlers to do religious rituals, Jewish religious rituals inside a Muslim complex. And the Palestinians decided to just resist this and managed to break the locks and open the gate. Yep. They opened the gate. It was a day of celebration,
Wow.
a day of celebration to the Palestinians of Jerusalem. A victory for everyone. Luckily, we have in Jerusalem what we call in Arabic at-tadayyun al-watani, which is a form of being religious but is on issues of national agreement. So, for example, without mentioning the big elephant in the room of militant Islam in other areas of the world, the type of religious institutions in Jerusalem particularly are very inclusive. They include non-religious Muslims, they include Christian Palestinians, they include anyone as long as you agree on the national agenda, al-agenda al-wataniyya, and these are issues of all agreement, that all Palestinians will agree on. And of course, the issue of stopping Judaization of Jerusalem, stopping confiscating Christian and Muslim properties and lands is an issue of agreement. So they spearheaded this movement, and they managed to mobilize the troops peacefully, non-violently, peacefully, and breaking the Al-Rahma gate. We'll definitely go back to this in more depth because we don't have the figures and the names. I really want to mention names. I don't want to talk about the topic without mentioning.
So it's still open though? So it's
still open.
Still open, but the Israelis are trying to close it again, and the Waqf have said no, we were not going to close it. But
since the opening of the gate, Israel has arrested pretty much all the names that were who led this
and
movement.
Over 200 already.
Over 200 already.
Yeah.
So that's another. Thank you. I would like to say thank you to Jerusalem for making us feel proud again.
And we should say that that members within Netanyahu's coalition have said that this provocation, the Palestinians opening the door to their own mosque,
is provocation.
This provocation should be the trigger for an immediate starting of construction of a synagogue.
Of course, inside the Muslim shrine complex.
At Rahma.
Well, look, with how things are going, with how lunatic the rogue state of Israel is going, these calls they might sound ridiculous, but I don't think they are too ridiculous for a government like Netanyahu's.
Not beyond the possibility.
No way. People don't even call them
Speaking
extremists,
of the upcoming elections...
We should talk about Hanin Zaabi, who came to Australia a couple of years ago, or probably about 5 years ago.
That's 9 years ago.
9 years ago,
Can
really?
you believe, 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you remember all that?
I was at Melbourne University, so I introduced her.
Photographic memory over here.
Yeah.
Well, she's a wonderful Palestinian woman, and we should endeavour one day to get her on the phone. So she's not contesting the next election, and one of the things she said is she wants to work within the community to get them to have a better understanding of their rights and responsibilities and obligations, but also to strengthen the coalition in the joint list, so to make sure that we Palestinians are able to be represented in the best and most powerful way. And look, she said some fantastic stuff just recently, and talks about the tensions between a democracy and ethnocracy. And this is particularly good. She said, the Declaration of Independence when Israel was founded was very clear. It said the principles of freedom, justice and peace, guided by the visions of the prophets of Israel, it will grant full, equal social and political rights to all of its citizens regardless of differences of religious faith, race or sex. It will ensure freedoms of religion, conscience, language, education and culture. I mean, this is a beautiful statement as a
theoretically speaking.
And, we know only too well where Israel sits today compared to that.
What they did in the coming 71 years left.
Well, culminating in the Jewish nation state law.
Passing martial laws for 12 years against non-Jews.
And martial law, of course, but nation state law last year saying that, this is... the state is for Jews. And one of the questions that was asked of her was, how she reconciled the difference, being a member of the Knesset, and, Israel claims it's a democracy. You're a member of the Knesset, so surely you're actually proving that they're right. And she said, when the US allowed African Americans to enter the bus, but insisted that they sit at the back, was that equality? You're in the Knesset, but not in the seat where you can make any change to any difference. In this rhetorical bus, there are 85 racist laws that prevent us from making any difference. We can always sit in the lower positions. You can enter the bus, but you have to sit at the back. The bus you enter grants special privileges to Jews. You can shout, but you don't have anything like the First Amendment of the US Constitution protect you. There is racism, there are racist articles, but there is no constitution to protect our rights.
That's powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah. So it's not equality. You can get on the bus. You just got to sit at the back.
You can just decide the future.
And
Look,
she closed the interview, and this is where she gets really strong. Sorry, Yusuf, to cut you off. There is no democratic way of being a Jewish state. Zionism is a colonial ideology, and the only way to have a democracy is to disconnect the state from Zionism. We envisage a democracy. We don't say you have to come as colonialists, now you must leave. We say you came as colonialists, but now you have a chance to live with us. And we would like to recognise you as a collective, but within a state which doesn't identify you exclusively, but which identifies with me and you in the same degree.
It's impossible to argue with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
if you want to apply logic only.
Well, that's...
She actually said you should start voting for the Balad Party. She said, you didn't have a choice to live in an apartheid racist state. You were born here, but nobody says that you have to keep voting that way. Vote Balad.
So that's the definition of ethnocracy.
Well, Alex Fine on Wednesday night at the BDS Jewish Community Discussion actually called Israel a theocratic kleptocracy. Theocratic being a religious one-person head type thing, and what they call Iran a theocracy, and a kleptocracy, which is where people are stealing, well, the top is stealing from everybody. So like a kleptomaniac.
It's a fantastic word. Fantastic word. Now, we better move along before we run out of time. We've got Sarah coming up in a few moments.
Sara Saleh. So
Yes.
stay tuned.
Stay with us.
I would like to welcome Sara on our show. So, Sara, welcome to Palestine Remembered.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
Well, what about Yusuf and Nasser?
Well, hello, Nasser.
We're all here.
Thank you all for having me.
Happy International Women's Day. And as a fantastic Palestinian woman, we can't wait to hear from you about Palestinian women and just how important they are to Palestine and our struggle.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm here for.
So we thought rather than ask you any question, we want you to tell our listeners, about what you do and the challenges you face, but also the successes. But also, if you can, just talk about some other Palestinian women too, and what they've done and what we've seen along the journey.
Sure. If I may, I would just like to take a minute to talk about, you mentioned it's International Women's Day, and I think it would be remiss of me to start this without acknowledging the fact that, unfortunately, even though what is supposed to be a celebratory, happy day, happy week, a month of celebrating and honoring women, what we've seen is, unfortunately, another very tragic and very callous death at the hands of a partner, a male partner. So, of course, I'm referring to the death of Preeti Reddy, who's a Sydney-based sister here, and she was tragically murdered earlier this week at the hands of her partner. I think, I would really love to take the opportunity to celebrate, but I think it's very difficult to do that when that is,
Of course.
of course, at the back of all our minds, and really should be front and center and highlight exactly what it is, we're doing here. It reminds us of why Women's Day is necessary, but also why, it doesn't just start and stop within this 24-hour window, but it is something that we are doing and working on tirelessly behind the scenes as well as front and center to ensure that this violence against women is stopped and that women feel safe, in their own neighborhoods, in the communities that they're from, and across this country.
Especially that we also lost Aya Masarwe in January.
Absolutely. Exactly right. And I think that that's another case in point, of course, of a very horrible, death that happened. And they're both, may they rest in peace and power. They're both gone too soon, I think. And this exactly speaks to the situation at hand, doesn't it? That, we can have a day such as International Women's Day, but really it's at this point, it will only be seen as symbolic and as lip service and as tokenistic if it's not backed by real action, at the heart of it. And I think what we need to be seeing is governments, being more responsive, not cutting funds to, women's shelters and domestic violence services, but actually, doing more on that, and also just really changing the culture and how we shift this culture to make us more cognizant of the power, the asymmetry of power between men and women. And I think that's something that we need to be really focused on in the coming years.
Well, yeah. And just before we turn it to a Palestine context, I mean, we only have to look domestically, where Tony Abbott appointed himself Minister for Women. Where
how absurd!
Look at the
I think that's reflective, isn't it, of exactly the sentiments. They don't take us seriously. It's a joke to them.
Yeah. And then if we extrapolate that to the reality of domestic violence and the sad death during the week of Priya, that something like one woman is murdered by her by her partner every
Correct.
6 days. I mean,
and
if you talk about that in the context of, okay, the woman that was murdered, but how many were abused physically, mentally,
verbally,
all of the stages of abuse that get to the point where one woman is murdered. How many hundreds and thousands are
correct. And I mean, look, this violence doesn't just happen at the hands of men. We know that this is also the case with state settler colonial violence against black and brown bodies. And of course, women of color and black women are at the forefront of that as well. We see that here in Australia with the deaths in custody. We see that with the high incarceration rates of black women. We see that with the very visible, the Islamophobia that is very visibly attacking and highlighting Muslim women, for example, and women of color. And I think, of course, this also goes to Israel and its own settler colonial violence against Palestinian women there. It's for me, it's very telling that in the same week as us celebrating that just last week Khalida Jarrad was released from
the Palestinian legislator
after being held. That's correct. Khalida Jarrad, who's a Palestinian legislator, was held in administrative detention, that is, in an Israeli prison without trial or charges for 2 whole years. And we saw very little from Western mainstream, white feminists to support her cause, and here in Australia as well. So I think that that's something that, is also very telling of where we're at in terms of the so-called intersectionality of feminism. It stops when it comes to Israel, and it stops when it comes to Khalida Jarrad and Zareen Tatour, unfortunately.
So, Sara, maybe this is a good thread for us and the listeners to know a little bit more about yourself. We can introduce you, but we want you to directly speak to the listeners and introduce yourself and tell us about the work you do for Palestine.
Sure. So, in brief, I'm a human rights campaigner, and I'm a writer and a poet and a law student. And I work with the Australia-Palestine Advocacy Network. And what I do there is, as a campaigner, I'm involved in sort of lobbying for justice for Palestine and human rights and equality for Palestine here in Australia. So what that means is that there's a lot of lobbying and advocacy and media messaging behind the scenes, as well as taking care of the digital platforms with APEN. I think I'm very lucky and privileged to be able to wear multiple hijabs and do what I do. I think I take that as a responsibility. I think that each of us is responsible to reflect and deconstruct our own privilege, and then use that to sort of create awareness and push for justice and fight in oppression in the different ways that we can. And I'm very lucky to be able to do that, as I mentioned, through my roles as a writer, as a human rights campaigner, through APEN, and also through my role as a board member on GetUp, which is Australia's probably largest advocacy organization, nationally speaking.
Tell us about the challenges that you face in doing so.
I mean, I think that there are probably a couple of things that, as a woman and as a visible Muslim woman of color, that I inevitably face in the multiple roles that I'm involved in. And first and foremost, it is very there's a cost. I think it's very draining to be someone who speaks out in the environment that we're in. There's a cost. It's a high cost, especially for women of color and black women, to be speaking to things, such as, society's illnesses, so to speak. We know that there's structural inequalities, that there are systems, of racism and of capitalism and of patriarchy and misogyny that interact to keep us to preclude us from participating to the full extent that we can, because of course it benefits those in power to do that and to stay in power. So for me, if I'm speaking out, it means I'm probably going to attract a lot of demonization, a lot of dehumanizing trolling and cyberbullying and comments, that are personally attacking me. But also, generally speaking, just pick up, a paper and you'll see something usually that's offensive or that's racist and bigoted against a Muslim woman or Muslims generally. So it is definitely very tiring to exist in this space, to constantly be deconstructing and decolonizing and trying to fight, because it is incumbent upon us. It is not a luxury. It is not a choice. It's a duty. But at the same time, sometimes when you're very tired, you just want to take the time off to heal and to resist and to build and to create. And unfortunately, we don't always get that. That choice. Our existence is political.
So, Sara, thanks for that. How about, do you want to make a comment about the parallels between what Ilhan Omar is going through in Washington?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point, isn't it? I find it ironic that, to quote Palestinian-American poet Rami Kenazi, that in 2 whole years, the Democrats haven't fought against the Republicans as hard as they have, the first black Muslim woman in Congress, because of her statements supporting Palestine and drawing to question, and critically so, the influence of the Israeli / Zionist Jewish lobby in the U.S. and their influence on politics. So it's very telling, isn't it, where they stand.
Well, interestingly, the Democratic Party met and they were going to raise a motion, arguably vague enough that it wasn't directly implicating her, but enough that we knew they were going to out her, and it fell over. We had Bernie speak out against it, a few other, the support came to her from the people of colour within the Democrat Party. So
that's right. Yeah, and I think that they understand very well that there is a deliberate, consistent effort by, for example, in the U.S., but as well as in places like France, you would have seen where there's a deliberate effort to conflate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, as we well and truly know, to silence and stifle all criticism. And I think that it's at times like this where we need to make sure that we're very clear and we're working together with allies, whether it is, for example, Jewish Voice for Peace or as you mentioned, allies, individual allies, to ensure that conflation does not happen, that no state is above critique, particularly when that state is very flagrantly involved in human rights abuses on a daily basis and is flouting international law.
Now, Sara, we're heading towards this fabulous interview towards the end, but I want to end from a message from you to Palestinian mothers, wives, daughters, sisters, whether here in Australia, around the world, the refugees, or inside our beloved Palestine. And you have about 90 seconds.
Well, what I would say is that at the end of the day, if we're not driven by love, if our movement is not driven by high ethics and integrity, we should definitely always remember that it's at the heart of what we do and at the root of what we do. If we're not fighting for love, then what are we fighting for exactly? And I will say very quickly that I stopped talking to or performing for a white audience a very long time ago, and I strongly urge us as Palestinians in Australia to also join the fight and support for a treaty. That's what Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women, sisters, and communities call for. I think it's high time that we also make sure that we're not silent anymore, because silence is complicity.
That was Sara Saleh from Sydney. Thank you very much, Sara, for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And with that, that's the end of this week's show. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to listen to us next week.